Hi everyone. Welcome to ACAD Asia. ACAD Asia is a Singapore-based impact-driven edtech startup that empowers the largest online community of education institutions and educators in Asia to upskill and reskill themselves to improve the learning outcomes for their 21st century learners. On acadasia.com, educators can access 4 specific services. First, Collab Ed, a social networking service that empowers education institutions to build their international network from all over Asia, and where individual educators can join a wide range of communities of teaching ad learning practice and engage in peer-to-peer learning. Second, Skill Ed, a professional development service that empowers educators to upskill and reskill themselves by accessing more than 1,000 hours of professional development content, all with formal CPD accreditations. In addition to this, academic managers from education institutions can track, measure, and improve the efficacy of all professional development that their faculty access on the platform, thus leading to better learning outcomes for their students. Third, Design Ed, the easiest course builder on the planet. In 5 simple steps, this service empowers educators to build fun, engaging, and quality content for their learners. Furthermore, third-party tools like Canva, Google, etc. are fully integrated right into Design Ed. Fourth, Certify Ed, a digital credentialing service that empowers education institutions to design, award, and track fully verifiable and tamper-proof digital micro-credentials and certificates on the blockchain. Join the largest community of educators in Asia who are already using the platform and sign up for your free lifetime membership at www.acadasia.com today.
Hello and welcome. I'd like to greet all our friends from all over the world, wherever you are at this time. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day to all of you. Welcome again to another session with ACAD Asia. We are a mission-driven, impact-driven edtech business, and we are here to empower educators everywhere. I am Roy Paton, one of the co-founders and chief community officer for ACAD Asia, and it's so good to see everybody again. We have all our friends from all our social media channels joining us today. I'd just like to give a couple of shout outs to our friends, of course, from the Philippines, even from our partners at the PRC CPD. Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. Welcome to our session today. And of course, all our friends from all over the world. We have friends from, as you can see, from Indonesia, in particular. Selamat datang, terima kasih. Thank you so much for joining us today. We also have, I think, some friends from India. I can see in the chat also. Hello to you. Welcome. Namaste. This is really exciting to have, again, our regular sessions every week. As you know, weekly we have our webinar series events. And this week is Webinar Wednesday. And for the month of February, yes, just in time, we have started the month of February on the dot, February 1. Our theme for this February series of events is about green education, okay, specifically incorporating environmental awareness, climate change education, and other environmental related topics into our courses and curriculum, just to increase the awareness of our learners about, our planet and how to help preserve it and to make it livable and beautiful for the future generations. Okay, so we have a great partner today joining us, guests from all over, and I can't wait to introduce all of them. Just a couple of more shout outs. Hello again. So many from the Philippines. We have also someone from Malaysia. Hello. Welcome as well. And that's India. I say hello. Okay, fantastic. Great audience we have tonight. So just a couple of reminders also. If you're in the Philippines, this course is accompanied with CPD points. We'll show you the course that you need to enroll towards the end of the session. So for the next hour and a half, we'll have the discussion among our panelists, and then you can enroll in the course on acadasia.com, complete the assessments there so that you can earn your certificates with CPD units for our friends in the Philippines. For those for the rest of the world, you can still earn your digital credentials from ACAD Asia. Just go through the same course. We'll show you how to do that towards the end. And yes, from UAE, hello. Welcome. All right. So, without further ado, I'd like to start off first, of course, by introducing my colleague and a good friend of the Acad Asia community to share with us, why it would be, maybe give some insights on why it's important to kind of talk about this topic. Last month, we were talking about artificial intelligence. This month, we're talking about green education and environment. So, he has 20 years plus experience, been in various leadership roles in senior high school principal. He's a trainer, educator, and expert. I'd like to call on my colleague and friend, Jake Aragon. Jake, please join us.
Hi, Roy. Good evening to you and to all our teachers joining us in this very insightful webinar that we have scheduled for tonight.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Jake. Can you just, in your experience, why do you think the discussion about the environment is really important in this day and age? Why do you think we should, be more aware of that and the impacts that we're having here?
Yeah, absolutely, Roy. You know what? Solving the climate crisis, I think, is the biggest challenge facing mankind today. So, effective,
Mm.
lasting solutions must start in schools. And schools should be able to actively engage young people in the process of understanding the issues and implementing solutions. Fortunately, many outstanding schools around the world, represented by our guests today, are showing the way to a just and sustainable future by modeling healthy, equitable, and sustainable practices in everything they do, from how they operate on a daily basis to integrating sustainable practices in the curriculum they teach. So we're very excited to hear and learn about them, Roy, and see how some of their best practices can similarly be implemented in our own educational institutions and schools.
Fantastic, Jake. Okay, that's a great intro. I'll call you back later in the Q&A, all right? Because we want to hear your insights from the discussion. Great
Absolutely.
introduction. Thank you so much, Jake.
Thanks to Roy. Okay.
Okay, that's a fantastic context, opener, appetizer. The discussion today is really, and as I introduce our guest, can education institutions help with the green transition? So, for our set of guest speakers today, I'll start out with our friends from at least one of our friend partner schools. Uh, Let me just check my notes one moment. We're inviting them because we also want to hear their best practices and insights from this. Um, all right. So first, I want to introduce the head of community and environment for one of our partners today. We have two representatives from them. They are the Green School Bali, based in Indonesia. But our first guest speaker, she's the head of community environment at Green School Bali. She actually has won several awards from the Australian government, such as the Australian Government Secretaries Award. She used to work at prestigious institutions such as Telstra and the Australian Department of Finance and Deregulation. She has been a experienced executive manager with a unique ability to lead people through organizational change. She creates and shepherds a sense of purpose, generates energy and commitment to these shepherds and people in the process of while keeping focus on priorities. And I guess a priority today is actually sharing more about green education. So I'm very proud to introduce our first guest speaker, Head of Community Environment at Green School Bali, Miss Kate Duran. Kate, hello and welcome.
Hi, Roy. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And hello to everyone out there. And if I may, a special hi and shout out to people joining from Indonesia, the place where Green School is and the place that I feel so privileged to call home. So thank you so much. I feel so lucky to be part of this panel today with my colleague Sal and the other guests, yourself, Roy, and all of you out there. This is going to be a great conversation, something very, very dear to our heart at Green School Bali. So we look forward to sharing and to learning.
Fantastic. Really great to have you with us, Kate. Our next speaker, also from Green School Bali, he's been with Green School Bali since 2013. He joined the school to teach mathematics, science, thematics, and later became the head of the middle school for 2 years before moving on into the teaching and learning principal role as recently as 2019. He is what they call an education revolutionary. Great to have him. He believes that Green School has a new model of what schools of the future need to do and be, and he's well placed to drive the revolution that this planet needs. He is passionate about how humans need to adapt, bending like the bamboo, and how life skills and values need to be the foundation of all learning experiences for all students. Living in an ever changing world, education systems have an obligation to adapt to new and current world problems. And as he puts it, the children's ability to adapt will determine the future of humans on this planet. So I'm very happy to introduce the head of teaching and learning and the principal at the Green School Bali, Mr. Sal Gordon. Sal, welcome to the program.
Hi everyone, how are you? Really excited to be here from the jungles in Bali. The rain has just stopped, so our fireside chat can be a dry one. Really excited. This is part of the revolution I want to see happen in education. These types of discussions with these people sharing, learning together, making change through education. I don't see any other way forward than accessing the potential of an education systems all around the world to make the world a better place. And being at conversations like this and being involved, it's an honor and a privilege to represent a school like Green School Bali, hang out with Kate for a little bit longer. Haven't seen you for a couple of hours, Kate. And yeah, just I suppose like Kate said, share and learn is really what we're about. And I think that's a way forward for us.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Sal. And of course, I'd like to introduce our final panelist for the evening, for the day today. And it's good to get a perspective from, world-renowned schools as well. All right. And a little bit higher up in geography compared to Indonesia. She's based out of Singapore, and she currently teaches in the School of Interdisciplinary Studies at Ngee Polytechnic. In the course of her 30-year career, spanning diverse industries in both public and private sector, she has worked on the capacity building and on promoting a collaborative work culture, bringing together teams and operationalizing systems promoting sustainability, as well as introducing innovative learning experiences. In more recent years, she's survived the challenge of moving an entire curriculum into the digital sphere, which I'm sure all of us have experienced as we come out of the pandemic now. And she is actually awarded the Public Administration Medal in 2019 for her work in education. She is a passionate supporter of the natural heritage and has been a longtime volunteer with the Nature Society Singapore, serving as the NSS Council in several capacities over the years, honorary secretary and assistant honorary secretary most recently. So I'm very happy to have with us to give really interesting insights from a top polytechnic out of Singapore. She's the Deputy Director, Academic Matters, School of Interdisciplinary Studies at Ngee Polytechnic. Proud to introduce from Singapore, Miss Evelyn Nang. Evelyn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Very glad to be here. I was a little embarrassed when I heard the introduction.
No need to be embarrassed, Evelyn. You're fantastic.
I'm really glad to be here, and it's a privilege to be amongst the present company. And the Green School is one of my favorite schools, one of my heroes in the kind of education that we should be offering to children and young people everywhere. So very happy to be here.
Fantastic, Evelyn. And I think your insights also on how we can incorporate more green education and how Ngee Poly does it will be very interesting to share with our audience today as well. All right. Okay. I'll just jump right into it. So again, our topic for today is, can education institutions help with the green transition? And for that, we've seen really a lot of things happening in our world quite recently. The environment has been the subject matter of all media and news outlets, social media channels, various groups and teams with various opinions about the state of the climate on our planet. And it's really very interesting. Maybe in your own words or how you see it, if the panel will just go around, whoever wants to start can maybe you share the maybe a brief overview or situation of how you how we see our climate reality today. As we know, in 2022, many records are broken in respect to weather conditions. And what are you seeing in terms of how countries, what are they doing, communities, how are they struggling today in terms of the environment, or how do you see the future playing out? So just a quick kind of snapshot. Where are we today in terms of the environment?
Well, who wants to start with the gloom and doom?
Yeah. I was just gonna say
Go
that.
on, who's forward? I go second.
I said if there's one word to say it, I'd just say it's dire. If two words, I'd say existential threat. So it's really in a bad state. I have three little babies who are I don't have children of my own, but my niece does. So she's three little babies, and I just dread to think of what kind of future they'll be going into, because you see all the reports, and you think about how global warming has not really been addressed, and apparently in the latest reports by 2040, we will overshoot, we will reach the overshoot mark, and exceed the 1.5 degrees Celsius that we set ourselves, and we're trying to achieve, which we obviously are not at this point. So and with all the great disasters that have happened because of climate change, I think it's not looking too good, I'd say.
Okay, interesting, Evelyn. What else can you share? Maybe Sal or Kate. How do you see the future playing out, or what are we experiencing right now? If you have a quick summary of what you're seeing in the environment today.
Yeah, well, Kate, I might jump in because, I suppose you asked that sort of question, and I know there's a lot of people watching as well and thinking about questions, and everyone's sitting around going, yeah, we're talking, species extinction, deforestation, the way we use resources, the waste that we create and what we do with it, our energy needs and production waste through that, how we look after each other. We've got sea levels rising, we've got sea temperatures rising, we've got extreme weather events. Where do you want to start? Everyone sort of knows that, as you said, Roy. So everyone, it's pretty obvious what's going on. But I think there's more of a foundational point to what we're struggling with, and it might sort of veer the conversation away a little bit. But I'm thinking about just that disconnect that has been created with nature and our impact on it. And I think that's the biggest struggle, and a cultural shift required to overcome that struggle and that particular challenge. We think over the time that we've just become so disconnected to nature that now we have to integrate and reconnect our learners with nature, when it's a shame it's gone that far. But without that reconnect with nature, especially for the younger years, then I'm pretty worried about the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's just better to kind of have a real sense of it. There's no, real way to sugarcoat it, and it feels like we've been kind of hearing it, even decades before. We've had Carl Sagan talking about the environment already, even in his programs before in the U.S. And then most recently, I think if you're following Twitter, the most recent was with Greta Thunberg, right? When she kind of had that speech at the UN, and everyone was kind of being aware of why we kind of have to pay more attention to this. But I mean, maybe Kate, recently, I mean, what have you been seeing? Even though it's an oft mentioned topic, there's like a general sense of it, but how can we really kind of pinpoint and really be more specific with what we need to do?
Well, I think for many of us as human people, it's very difficult to process the magnitude of the problem. And the word crisis itself is quite overwhelming and difficult to access as a problem, in the sense of understanding it and then being hopeful about doing something about it. And I think when I think about the crises around the world, and Sal mentioned, aquifer depletion, pollution, water, air, soil, it just goes on and on and on. And numbers come at us and we see new reports, and it only seems to get worse, generally speaking. But what I think is interesting in all of that, in understanding the problem as a start point, is even just looking around our immediate kind of neighborhood, our immediate surroundings, and being conscious of what has changed, because it's happening all the time, and tuning into something that is more accessible for us. And I guess this conversation is about education and children, so particularly for them, because I think the crisis itself and the information and all of us being armed and up to date with what's happening is one piece, but also what we also see is fear, fear and concern, and that's not how we want to bring children into the world and to grow up in the world. So it's that balance between giving hope and being optimistic, but facing the realities at the same time. And that Sal can speak to that much better than I can, but taking children from a young age into a space where they're learning about these things requires some caution, I think, in all of that. So straying a little bit off the topic, but I think it's relevant when we sort of want to dive straight into, you know, the magnitude of the problem, you know, and the trajectory the planet is on, that we need to make sure that we're engaging students in that in a way that is hopeful but realistic for them.
Yeah, I like what you said, Kate, where, you know, the general reports or the news or crises as they report it, they can seem very distant, right? Because on the macro level, as Evelyn was talking about, you know, the 1.5 degrees temperature rise globally, you can have other metrics that say glacial ice. You can have, let's say, species extinction, or, you know, migration of, you know, humans and animals and other species of flora and fauna not being indigenous or having to get out of their old habitats into new habitats. So it can sound very textbook and very academic in that sense, right? But bringing it home and making it more real is, as you said, you know, just look outside your window and feel the air and the breeze that you have. I mean, are you noticing, you know, changes in, you know, the more hail or more snow, or hotter extremes to colder extremes? You know, it's like, just to share, you know, in Philippines, in Manila, I mean, there used to be, you know, 2 seasons more or less, just a wet season and a relatively summery dry season. But now, like, towards the part of, let's say, November, December, January, we're experiencing some cold drifts or cold fronts that, you know, typically we'd have to go up to our high mountains in Baguio to feel the chilly air. But now I'm in the lowlands of Manila. I can feel the Baguio air, and it's quite chilly already. So that used to not happen before. So just taking it from, let's say, all this media and, you know, scientific metrics, which are valid, and research, and then how do you make it real for the students and the communities and the young learners? How do you kind of concretize the changes in the environment?
For us, I think if you start with your youngest learners, it's really important to be sort of not going straight at significant problems and building a sense of biophilia and awe and wonder. At Green School Bali, we're not really throwing environmental issues at our youngest learners at all. We're allowing them to spend time in nature and to be fascinated by nature and to grow a connection with nature and learn that they have impact with nature and the natural environment. But, you know, as students get older, I mean, our middle school and high school students are very well aware of all of the information that we're saturated with in terms of the environment and climate crisis. And with that natural awe and wonder, they do carry through with inquisition and questions and wonder, and then they start, as they get older, to see themselves having impact. And so a school can be a place that gives them skills and allows them time to demonstrate values, to show that impact and make change. And as they get older, some of our students keep going through adulthood and making change in the world. So it really is a different sort of journey for different age learners if you're talking about actual school practice. But without that, again, reconnection and that awe and wonder with nature, I think it's difficult to do even as you get older.
Yeah, I like that approach, Sal. It's like, instead of presenting, you know, obviously the issues, tapping into the appreciation, why we love nature, why we feel energized when we're interacting in the environment. And as you said, starting young helps to build that connection and that appreciation for nature. Evelyn, is this something that you kind of also see in Nian and inculcating the love of nature early on for your learners?
Absolutely. And I think the problem with us is that sometimes, they get very excited about nature. They see things, have experiences, but when they come to us and they're older, a little of that wears off. So when we
Mm,
meet them, they, kind of like a bit jaded and cynical at a very young age. And then we have to kind of recreate that process and help them to connect again. So for them to want to do something about the environment, about sustainability, about all these things that matter, they need to see that link. What is that link for them? So I think for us it's a little different. So for the students that come to us, we need to kind of show that perspective. Some are already very passionate about it, but others need to be
mm,
convinced a little bit more. And I think we need to try and do that, and through our lessons, through exposing them, the things like practical activities and field trips are actually very important, because in Singapore you can get through your entire life, you can see green around you, but you might not want to touch it so much, right? So it's urbanized as an environment. So we find that particular difficulty lah. But there's also occasion for hope, because I see a change also. A lot of our young people that come to us, they I have a passion and a conviction, and the only question is, what do you do with all that, right? Where do you
mm.
go with it? How do you help them become a little bit of the change maker that they could be, to make a difference in the world? So for us is trying to find those opportunities for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the education system or the schools you're at, or learning experiences as positive experiences for them. That's an opportunity for them to cultivate that love of nature and
Mm.
practice and see how they can actually do something or create projects around it. Yeah. Kate, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, listening to what you're saying there, Evelyn, I think also, even in a school like the Green School, children will get very passionate about something, and then they may kind of not be so passionate about that at different stages. They've moved into middle school and they've got other interests or whatever it might be, at different stages and ages. But I think what's really nice is, watching students go through the school and out the school and out into the world is taking some values with them, which they might not be demonstrating all the time, because none of us are perfect, but it's about what's happening while they're in the school for us, but it's also about the long game there. What are they taking out, whatever they choose to do with their life, and their personal practices and things that they can continue to work on. So that values piece, that kind of sustainability mindset, is something that we're okay with them, cooling off for a little bit if that's where they are in their growth journey, and then activating again at some point. But I think the thing that's interesting when we think about looking in our own backyard as a start point, as Al said, and you yourself said, Evelyn, too, taking children out, being in nature, connecting to it, loving it, and then hopefully wanting to protect it is the idea. But also just finding little actions that can be taken. And that's when we start to learn that each of us, our own individual practices can make a difference. If a lot of people do little things, that's huge movement, And so Sal would have many more stories than I, but, just talking to a grade 3 class and asking them what they know about where their lunch waste goes, and then sort of gently guiding them to actually find a problem, not telling them what the problem is, and certainly not telling them what the food waste problem is on a global level, but just looking in their own classroom, even in their own group, and then exploring together, solutions for what could be done with that food waste that is more responsible and cares for Mother Earth. So just finding those small little accessible, achievable kind of solutions that students can take into their own hands is that's somewhere to start.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so for our audience here today, a reminder, if you want to continue to ask questions, we will post a Mentimeter link that'll be posted in the chat groups already, and maybe you can show it again on screen. If you have any questions that you want to ask our panelists, I already have a few here. Maybe you can tackle them also, because this is actually part of the discussion flow anyway. And please field your questions, just post them here, and we'll do our best to kind of answer them as we go along. Hopefully, there's enough time in the discussion and the Q&A portion at the end. We want to cover as much ground as we can. Okay, so maybe some of you are really asking really straight to the point questions. I really appreciate it here in the chat. Perhaps we can just add a little bit more context as well here. Maybe we can go on the macro first before we kind of go in the micro. So there's one question here. In general, just to get your opinions, ladies and gentlemen, why in some respects should the population size be considered when developing policies to limit future warming? I guess this, just general comedy. What should there be differences in the policies implementing in developed and developing countries, or what points must be considered? I guess this relating to, is there a correlation between population size and warming, and should there be policies kind of built around that?
I mean, you try and solve one problem and you create another. I mean, these
exactly.
are questions that people, so I can only speak for myself, that with a far bigger brain than I are tackling. But I think it's fair to say that, that's, each of us as individuals, if we start there with the people already on the planet right now, and what we're doing, our own actions, and those of us in education, what we can do in that space, I feel like, that's a very, very good place to start, is starting with the humans that are here right now, whatever our age, but particularly the role for schools in that as well.
I suppose we influence our own sphere, which is within education and our school, and hopefully that trickles out and spreads out like a ripple to the rest of society. But on that level, I think it would be possibly policy makers, and then we would work with them. So, for instance, in Singapore, we have the Singapore Green Plan 2030, and the Ministry of Education and all the schools work together to achieve that vision for a sustainable future. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I just might add, I think that question sort of points more towards the context or theme. When I read that question, I don't really have an answer myself, but it's really pointing out, and it's a great question because it's pointing out that the socioeconomic differences across the planet. The previous just little small discussion around who and what are we struggling with. Well, we know that the people that are struggling with most things are probably struggling with the climate crisis, or are definitely struggling with the climate crisis more than anyone else. And just that divide, we need to be aware of that. And like Kate said, that's one issue, and you change one thing and then it's another. This is a highly complex system we've created here, this human civilization, and our interaction with a highly complex natural environment. It's a systems thinking magic wonderland. To see it work, it's one of those clocks that you can see the inside of. We need to be aware that a green transition or changing education systems need to be thinking about sustainability really holistically, to include that socio-economic factors and even that personal well-being factor, which is really important. So it's a great question, but it's pointing towards two other sort of separate conversations for me too. Still don't have
absolutely.
an answer.
It probably is a multifaceted, multi-sectoral answer, right? I like what you said, Sal, about it's a systems thinking approach. So if you have really a complex problem, or what we call, let's say, a wicked problem, the answers are not straightforward, but I think educational institutions are one of the key pieces in that puzzle, because the role that educators play, influences the behaviors of young people who then become decision makers in future, and how they contribute to managing the planet better, make conscious little decisions every day, whether on their own lives or in greater scales, and how you purchase products, how you consume products, how you dispose of them, how do you kind of be part of more reusing and recycling, or what have you. I know that's a tired term, and some people have actually been questioning the recycling theme a lot, but I think educators and institutions like that we have have a role to play, a serious role to play in terms of shaping, how people will behave and our young people as they inherit the planet after us. There's also a couple of questions here. Then I'll kind of zoom in a little bit. You're mentioning about the green transition. So there's one question here in the chat. What do we mean by this green transition and green initiatives, and what strategies or measures do institutions can use to engage students to be more aware? So maybe you can start with, what is the green transition, what is the green initiative, and how do we engage students more towards this? Yeah, anyone can, or you can kind of what in your mind is, what do you mean when you say green transition? What are we talking about?
I think sustainable future. I think transition's a funny word when you put that in too. Maybe I'm overthinking things. That getting late at night in Bali, but we're always in a state of transition. It's where are we transitioning to? And I suppose part of this conversation, we get into it more, is that schools sort of have that responsibility themselves of being a guide to where we transit to. They always have. Unfortunately, it's gone off the rails, I think, and that's why I want a revolution. That's why we need change in education, to reconnect with a purpose. Schools do define the future societies we live in. They always have, they always will. And so if the question is, can schools be a part of the green transition? Well, the question's more like schools will or need to be a part of the green transition. Education systems that's the purpose, to define the future. Pretty big picture I could throw to Evelyn. We could go a bit more micro than that.
Exactly that, because that's our job, right? We have to prepare our students for the future that they will go into, and it's unpredictable, but certain things about where the earth is going, and for us, that's what we will need to prepare them for. And I think part of it will be equipping them with some of the skills, so that then they can go out and do the things that they need to do to make this world better, where sustainability and the environment is concerned. So interesting you talk about a wicked problem, because actually that's one of the things that we try to do. So for our older students in year 3, the final year students, they go through this project module, and they are set they think of a wicked problem in one of those areas. Many of them think about environmental problems, and then in groups, in teams of about 4 or 5, they come together and try to come up with a solution. So they will go through the process of collaborating with each other, thinking through things, and then researching and so on, so that they understand basically the background behind it, and then what to do to approach it. So there's so many things that we try to prepare them for, but you can't, because it's really, as you all have mentioned, is a world that's quite unpredictable. So so the things we try to do would be to try and prep them with the skills, right, to learn for themselves.
Can I go even more micro, and then probably Kate could go macro, because she's such a community expert. We're talking about engaging students in a real world learning experiences. We're talking about moving away from knowledge-based learning and thinking about skills and values. We're talking about connecting learning experiences with our immediate local community. We're talking about integrating learning experiences, having fun at school, seeing impact with our learning now. It's probably been a little bit doom and gloom to start off with. Education change that I want to see is fun, it's alive, and it's magic, and it's about communities coming together and solving problems together, and celebrating the failures too. We're talking about a change in education that's good for our students. It's not about presenting a whole heap of climate crisis information and telling them to solve it. It's about changing education so it's realistic, it's authentic, it's going to connect them to the real world now and in the future, and make a difference in their lives and hopefully the planet. And it's projects, it's real stuff. Education revolution needs to be fun at a micro level, and it can be for all ages in a school.
It needs to give them some hope, because otherwise our poor kids, they look at the world and is this what you're giving us?
Yeah, well, actually really right on that point, Evelyn. I was just thinking as Sal was talking about it, I mean, even even the term green transition, it sounds very gentle and almost kind of on a very fixed kind of trajectory that just keeps moving forward at a steady rate. And I don't think that's what we need to do or what we're actually experiencing at all. It's far more dynamic than that, and exciting in some ways than that. And I think the transition is us. It's all of us, the human people on the planet, and all sort of playing a part in that. And I think that can be exciting and it can be fun. And as Sal said, and maybe we'll talk about this more, but you know, the experience of achieving something through collective effort is something that's not easy to find these days. And you know, or maybe we find it in a workplace or somewhere else, but it's not necessarily what we absolutely believe in our hearts and are sort of following a mission, but rather doing a job. So I think it goes back to those values and that mindset, and finding people to collaborate with to kind of make a difference. And the other point I just wanted to make, actually, because I know we're talking about the children here and their learning and their future, and they're the ones that are going to have all the good ideas, and we're here just to help them, to educate them and help them go off and find all the problems. But actually we're part of that too. And I think this goes back to that earlier point about not placing fear in the hearts and minds of children, that not only did we have all these complex problems, but it's completely up to them really to solve them, because we're just kind of faffing around the edges here on a few bits and pieces. So I think as the grown-ups in our school communities, you know, what are we doing? What are we sharing? What are we talking about? You know, what are we modeling to the students, aside from the learning program or curriculum or whatever else is packed into their day and their schedule? You know, what do they see us doing, the grown-ups in the community, and showing that we're playing our part too on a very individual level? I feel that's an important piece in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because go ahead, Evelyn. Go ahead.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah, you can't teach without doing it yourself.
Yes.
So you can't teach them about being green if you're just wasting food on one hand, and just buying fast fashion or whatever it is that. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, and we certainly know, Evelyn, the teenagers definitely will be right on us if we're saying one thing, and then
they'll call you out.
They will call you out. Yes,
they call you out in the supermarket.
Yeah,
and that's quite interesting, right? It's like that behavior. I mean, maybe that's one way we can measure and see consciousness, green consciousness in our young people, right? Because I don't know, I may not look that old, but in my, back in the day, it's like it's very rare that young people will bring issues up like that. But I guess now, perhaps in your experience, you are seeing that Greta Thunberg or some other young people are really standing up and making their voices heard in terms of we have to pay more attention to this. It's like when we go to schools, institutions, typically you think of, okay, I need to learn skills, develop myself as a human being, a human person, so that when I enter the workforce, I'll be productive, employable, and what have you, right? So sometimes the focus of schools, I think, sometimes tends to become focused on those employable skills, help in the economy. But I think when we try to imbibe a green mindset or a green transition or a more conscious environmental awareness, how can schools integrate those practices of being more conscious about it? Maybe not, you can have explicit programs for it, but how do you, maybe a few examples if you can share of just tidbits of an example of how they actually incorporate that in existing lessons that achieve both. I think both can be done, but do you see that? Do you see like some schools are offset or are not paying attention to environment in lieu of the other more practical applications of their education?
Could I just speak?
Oh yes, please, Evelyn, go.
I think in Singapore it's particularly difficult. not to teach it, but to balance all the different aspects of education, and our students tend to go through quite a lot of pressure. And even in the polytechnic, it's supposed to be a little less academic in some senses, because that is a path with, more hands-on and more practical oriented lessons. But still, there's a lot of competition for their attention and their time. So for us, that is a concern. For us, that's a concern.
And I mean, I like the point about making it fun, right, at the
Yes,
start,
yeah.
because I guess because we're older, we're more aware, right? But
Yep.
the having a positive first experience with nature and the environment, that's
Yes.
what really brings out a more it's almost like inception, right? The idea of wanting to love and protect nature and be more conscious about it with my buying decisions and my actions, that kind of stems from the original seed of the idea, which is nature's fantastic, right? It's like remember in the pandemic, we were all closed indoors and we couldn't go out and experience sunlight and the waves and nice dolphins jumping in the sea, and those things you could not experience that
Yes.
in the pandemic, and it just compounded with all of these mental health. But you have children who like walk out and experience nature and fun, and it re-energizes. And so have you tried or have you experienced some institutions or your own institutions incorporating this fun of nature type approach towards that? And is that a great first step? How can education institutions kind of incorporate that a little bit? Just if you could share.
I might jump in, can I?
Yes.
Sure.
Jump in,
Chris, Al,
please. Yeah,
please.
I lost my train of
well,
thought
I don't
earlier.
know, get on the website if you haven't seen what Green School Bali or who we are and things like that. Get on and have a look and see what a sort of nature-based immersive campus can look like with a sustainable design, gardens. It's got the river there. That's a little bit of a risk. We won't go down there. A whole heap of really sort of it's rugged. It's not polished and it's not pretty, but it's jungle and it's real. You do that as much as possible. You create as many natural environments in your school, regardless of they're urban or in the jungle like us, and you find ways to find places of natural environment around your school. The other part, really, I think it's really important to go, well, we want to be educating more than just an awareness or about sustainability, and we talk a lot at Green School Bali about educating for sustainability. So, and we've got to go sort of that extra step. I know there's a lot of cool schools doing a lot of cool things, educating for sustainability. But for the majority, it's really how do we integrate discussions around sustainability issues on the planet in terms of curriculum design, learning program design. When we've actually gone sort of that next step that allows us to provide learning experiences for a sustainable future, and just tweaking that phrase there, of educating about and educating for is a really big difference. We've got a lot of examples. I'll try and do one in like a minute, and Kate's probably got other experiences. Our students, high school, found two problems. One was a transport issue and one was a used cooking oil, and they used those two problems to come up with a solution called the BioBus program. Check that out on our website too. Our students, we now have 7 biobuses that transport our students around to and from school in the morning and on excursions around the island that are fueled by upcycled biodiesel, upcycled used cooking oil. So they've actually found 2 solutions with two problems and one solution. I don't know how it is, but it's magic. But there's chemistry, there's literacy. They've designed apps. It's mathematically challenging. They're in a chemistry lab doing transesterification. They're at public speaking gigs talking about this program around the world. That's environmental change through education. That's educating for sustainability. And there's lots of examples of allowing students to, like Kate said at the very start, find those local problems. And for educators to create a real learning experience, let them go at it, because they can create solutions. One example.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
So maybe I'll just helicopter back out a little bit again, and going back to your sort of question, and some of the points Evelyn raised too around pressures, not just pressures for students, but pressures on teachers and pressures on schools, to achieve certain outcomes and so on. And while we're busily focused on that, of course the world is rapidly moving on, and the sort of jobs and roles of the future and the needs of the world in the future, are going to be very different for the children that are in our primary schools right now. We actually can't even really properly envisage what sort of jobs they might have in their lifetime as they become adults. And so that's very hard for us to grapple with too. But I think this brings us back to some of the points Sal raised around skills, the actual education around skills, the mastery of skills that are very in that kind of 21st century space. Because I think what we have seen and will continue to see is that problems and therefore opportunities are not, we can't just assume these are going to be resolved by governments, for example. We see the private sector, we see entrepreneurs coming in with really innovative solutions to big problems, and there's loads of space for a lot more of that. So actually, educating for the environment or for sustainability or so on, you're actually opening up more opportunities for students because the world needs more of this. Like that's just how it is and where it's going. And so I don't think we've made the connection between, what graduates need to go out and access the best opportunities for their life with what is happening in the environment, as it's not as connected as it probably should be. So as a parent, I would like my child to be set up, if that's a pathway they want to take, to go forth and be innovative in the space of the environment, if that's something that they would like to do, because that's a very valid and wide open space for them to build a career in. So I think there's, there's so many interesting kind of angles to come in on that from, but I wanted to add one more example because Roy, you did prep us and say, give examples because we all love examples. So I'll give you another example that might be, we're not all, we're so lucky. I mean, Sal and myself and the team here at Green School Bali, we're in this amazing jungle environment in beautiful Bali in Indonesia, we're right in nature. But
It really sucks, doesn't it? It's terrible.
It's terrible.
You can see your background, yeah.
The air is too fresh. The air is too fresh over there.
Too cool.
But I think I see other sort of classes and lessons going on that really are, could be happening anywhere at any time. And I know, or Sal would understand this better than I, but I know a thematic class in, I think it's about grade 5, so upper primary school, which is, I think that the theme is kind of deconstruction, but they actually take old, broken they had a washing machine in there, for example, and a blender and whatever that were just going to landfill, they took it all apart and they actually went back and looked at what all the materials were and grouped them together that made up this washing machine, and then tracing the origins of those products back to the earth, where did these start from, and where did these components come from, and how far from around the world did they travel to get here, and what happens with this at the end of it, and can we do something with this product that's come to the end of its life cycle. So really kind of engaging class. It actually ended up, they made a bunch of things at the end, including some very interesting kind of artwork and some mobiles and things that hung around the place. And so there was that art piece in there as well, which was really lovely. But, a really epic, actually, thematic class. I love seeing it. It runs most years at Green School. My own son, who's very big now, did that when he was in primary school and remembers it like it was yesterday. But, that can be done anywhere, in any classroom, anywhere in the world, more or less, I think.
And
I don't know, Sal, would you like to add?
They look at you and go, well, are you stupid? What are you doing? What sort of society has created this monster?
Oh, so Sal, just to highlight that point. So if it seems societal perception is, if you are trying to take apart these old things and try to figure out where they came from and repurpose them somehow, they look at you funny because, why are you even bothering? Just throw it away. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, no, probably not. I'm probably more referring to like the obvious waste and almost stupidity in our production and consumption habits around the planet. And when students get an insight into that, they really, with that, unique, say what's on your mind from a child, just come at you straight with, that's the most stupidest thing I've ever seen. Why have we got to this point?
So it's like the very frank and observation of children. If they see what's happening and it doesn't make any sense to them,
no.
and it's a fair question to ask,
they
right?
come up with great solutions. They're like, if you pose questions, well, how can we do better? They do come up with really simple, easy things, and they're like, well, shop local, or let's be more communal with some of our bigger purchases, or energy saved somehow, water saved somehow. Let's look after them. They come up with some, really simple solutions. I've had classes and run UN style classes where students have redesigned the whole economical structure on the planet in 5 minutes. Redistribution of wealth and major whole countries' economies going, well, we spend too much on military, we spend too much on this, and we need to change the tax brackets here, and we need to invest more in health and education. Yeah, great, we've got the money, done, let's do it. And I'm like, it's not that easy, but they do come up with solutions quite easily.
I mean, I like the fact that, there are fixed classes or programs that really focus on integrating multiple, disciplines, insights, whether it's math, science, communication skills, to come up with the solutions. So also the fact that, trying to incorporate then that's in the classroom, and educators, how to equip educators with, that kind of approach or curriculum that it still achieves their learning outcomes for their school. I just want to highlight this topic as well here. Like in the school itself, another way where education institutions can be more green is their own policies. Like as adults, as administrators of the school, what is the school doing in terms of policy and implementation that is, looking towards a more green future, right? So even things like, using less practice, Glyza is suggesting here. Kate, you raise your hand. What did you want to share?
Oh no, I just wanted to add the point, because I think, and just looking at some of the beautiful comments there, and thank you so much everybody that's putting those questions. Well, the questions actually, particularly there. It's so great to read those. But I think also, I mean, there's so much that can be done that's really accessible to everyone. I guess that's the point. That we tend to think it's about planting things in the earth and making our schools or our communities literally greener, literally in terms of what's growing around us. And of course, that's a really important part. But these other elements around consumerism, around waste management, those sorts of pieces are really good, rich things to explore that aren't necessarily about getting out and planting in the soil even. So I just wanted to sort of throw that in there, because just in reading some of the questions, I thought that might be a good angle to bring in.
Yeah, and any school on the planet can get student organised groups to do sustainability audits of their school. If there's teachers out there right now taking notes, then here's your first step: get a sustainability committee, or activate some classes that are, whether they're maths class, which is a great. I've run them myself through sustainability audit sort of structures around waste and transport and procurement and things like that. Your school and your student can do that, and then analyze, that sort of carbon footprint that your institution has, and then you've found some of your problems. That's where the fun begins, because then you can actually reinsert that learning which has come from students back into a community to say, all right, let's do something about our energy, or we should be doing better with our waste. We should be doing better with procurement. There's so many things that a school needs to do and be a centre of innovation within a community.
Yeah, I like that, having a sustainability committee. I think that's one of the
Yes.
good tips to have. Like whether it's multi-faculty or multi-administration, you got a group there that's just looking at this
Yes.
and how to incorporate more consciousness in terms of the environment.
Students, get students on those committees.
Students to lead it. Well,
That's
the
right.
staff need to be part of it too. Yes,
Yes.
exactly that. I think for the institution, you need to have somebody or at least a group of people to kind of spearhead that cuts across all the different schools. Like we have got 9 schools, so it has to be across.
Mm.
Then within, so perhaps at 2 levels, at institutional level, you need to have the culture, the ethos, all that has to come in, and it's got to be that you think this is important, that this is something that you want to spend money and time and effort on. And then in the education part for us as teachers in the classrooms, and I think it has to be meaningful and planned, because I think it's just too important to be just ad hoc. And in Singapore, I think we're getting to the point where we are putting a lot more emphasis on that in the curriculum. And in Ngee just to cite some examples, since since we are into the examples, we try to do it across the different years, and in year 1, when our students first come to us, they're about 17, we try to introduce them to issues that are important. It could be something as simple as just not simple, but climate change, for instance, recycling plastics. And then as they go on to year 2, so they would do their communication classes. So because our school is the School of Interdisciplinary Studies, is a bit of a mouthful, but it's a school that brings all the students together. So across the other different schools with the different diploma programs in business, life sciences, the kids all come through us because they have to do a certain set of modules as part of their 3 years. So they do that in comms, in communication modules. We interweave those issues so that they start getting an awareness. So it's kind of building on that foundation. And then in year 2, we go into a little deeper. We call it broaden. So we've got a scaffolded approach. They do a module called World Issues. And in that module, they learn about some of the global issues and events that are important and how it matters to Singapore and what's our role in all this. I guess it's interesting to hear Sal and Kate talk, and it's just admirable, how values is such a big part of the green schools. So I guess for us, we try to do that too, to make sure that our kids graduate with that value system, that the idea that you have a role in the world. You're not just a citizen of your own little community, but you've got to think bigger, and try to do something about making the world better on that global level. Then when they go to year 3, that's when they do the module that I mentioned earlier, which is that project module, because we find that, the way to try and prepare them for what's out there is to teach them those skills. You can't really teach them content that changes and gets obsolete, 5 years after you graduate, and that's it, So we try to teach them the skills, and hopefully that with all that, the awareness, a little bit of information and the skills, as they go out into the world, they'll be able to do something, that awareness is there, and then hopefully those habits stick, and they find out more about, what they need to do. Yeah, so that's how we structure it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Evelyn. Very insightful. And in fact, I think as the month goes on, we'll still have more discussions and discussions from the Green School Bali representatives, because in the second week and the third week, we'll kind of delve even deeper and the more detailed structures and how they can actually have more environmental approaches and green education incorporated more in their schools. There was just one quick question here. I'll just throw it in as well from the chat. Sorry, there's quite a number of them.
There are many questions.
Yeah, there's here question 17. It's asking, in what ways do you see metrics of academic success needing to transition in education if meaningful changes are to take place, right? So I guess they're trying to ask about, okay, there are academic success metrics, but is it possible to include, a green slant on it, or how do you incorporate that in the assessment flow?
For me, a lot of that's about at a teacher level, and that's individual teacher level, with building relationship and learning with students. It's about changing our outcomes. For so long, we've been stuck in academic knowledge-based outcomes, focused on product, on a number. And I'll probably go back to, we could just educate about sustainability and give them a nice exam to see if they know the definition of climate change and how many degrees the oceans rise. And, we could just do that. But if you're educating for sustainability and providing opportunities for students to activate their learning now and have a difference, then you do have to complete change around that concept of assessment and reporting. We need to move away from only standardized assessment, only age-based assessment. I'd be integrating more student reflections in your teaching practice and letting students reflect on their learning themselves, and building in that as a life skill itself is a good thing. I'd be doing more peer-and-peer process evaluations. I'd be looking for failure as a measure and a metric of success, even in terms of challenging students with a problem that they might not succeed at. So I think that question's amazing, but the easy, simple answer is, in many big ways do we need to see the metrics of academic success change in schools. If we're going to move away from a knowledge-based system to provide opportunities, skills and values, we need to be really innovative and not scared about losing that sort of stronghold that educators have had on, in terms of, I know my students are learning because, they all passed the test. We've got to sort of move away from that as educators and go, right, let's provide some different outcomes that maybe even can't be measured with a number or a grade. But let's do it because that's what we want to do with education, rather than be worried that we can't prove to someone that a student knows 82% of what I taught them.
Right. And that's a whole other conversation, right? Because then it relates to assessments and government requirements and moving up and all of that. But maybe in smaller steps, even simpler projects, you can implement. Schools and administrators and educators have some autonomy on some aspects of their teaching and learning delivery, right? So we've had to adapt in the pandemic, right? And adjust to these. Now it's more commonplace to have webinars using a screen rather than meeting face to face. Similarly, when we imbibe green education in the curriculum, there are ways to kind of insert slivers of that. Sal, sorry, you
even if
wanted
it's
to
even if it's skill based, I'm talking about, like, I was a maths teacher, so you change the focus of a lesson from solving algebraic equations to just, how do we solve problems? Let's solve problems together. And you turn that into the outcome. Let's learn how to solve problems together, rather than just focus on an algebraic method or focus on memorizing formulas. Let's solve problems together, and then you relate that to everything else in your life as well. We know that solving problems is important for future generations. Let's integrate it that way.
I think for us, we are great. Sorry.
Go ahead, Evelyn.
We're great advocate. I mean, we really believe in project-based learning. So that's one of the pedagogies that we adopt, and have embraced with a passion. Because I think for the students, the learning is in the process, right? As you go through, not so much just let's produce an A piece of work, but what do I learn along the way, and the skills that are picked up, because these are skills that will be useful for them for life, collaborating, being able to communicate clearly, being able to think about things in a critical, reason out facts and non-facts for themselves. So these are the things that we would really want them to have. And assessment can incorporate some of these things as well. But I would have to say that, in Singapore, for our education system, we still have a tension between, the grades, because they're still the grades. So even if we wanted to incorporate some of the other elements, we still have that to keep in mind. The GPA is still an important thing that the students are very concerned about. So the question is, how do you try to balance this, make it a rich learning experience, something that doesn't pressurize them too much, and yet you have to meet certain guidelines and certain standards that we all have to achieve in the national agenda for education.
Maybe I can add some add some thoughts on that, because I think, like the climate crisis, the change needed in education also can probably feel quite overwhelming. Well, the system's too big, it's too entrenched. What can I do? And I think, aside from some of the things, as Sal was saying, how you can take what you need to be covering in a math course and bring the environment into that somehow. I mean, children, as I say, are the most creative people on the planet. And I would nominate teachers as the second most creative people on the planet. I'm not actually a teacher myself, so I see it. I see it working in this school, just surrounded by very creative people who love learning. So, we know we can make some changes from the inside out as we continue on this change agenda. As you say, Evelyn, things are changing, but there's still a lot of pressures in there. But one thing that I was just thinking about was sort of all the things that happen in and around the classroom in a school community. So what we're learning, what we're covering in our classroom is one piece, but also what's happening in terms of our practices as a community, what problems are right there in our own backyard. That we could start a project around. I love the idea of the committee, or even if you feel that the school's not ready for a committee, or there aren't people willing to maybe put their hands up, because sometimes that can feel like a lot of work. I'm not sure I want to do it, or I'm not a green expert, but even just opening up space for a lunch, come join together. Anyone that's interested in talking about these things, come together, let's start some conversations, because teachers are really brilliant at connecting with each other and getting creative around things. So who knows what might come of that, and students could come too, and perhaps even parents. I don't know, probably depends on each school's kind of setting and so on. But other things that I think are interesting, that I think maybe often the children, the students, particularly when they're older, can see as a real asset as they head to graduation, which are perhaps other certifications or other awards or things that can be very much in the environmental space, that whilst it might not appear on their transcript, certainly appears in their portfolio, and their CV as they go out in the world, because this is not just about the planet. This is actually about providing the best, most opportunities for our children as they go out into the world, and having something very green on there that they have been active in the environmental space, I think, is something that universities, employers, are starting more and more to want to see. So I think building side clubs or projects that students can get involved in, or whatever, that are perhaps a bit more extracurricular, is something maybe that can be more accessible to a lot of schools that otherwise, are not really in that space yet.
Yeah, that's great tips, Kate, because there are some questions about, what if I only have limited time in the school year? I have only limited subject matter hours. You can do that at lunch or extracurricular orgs. I also like what you mentioned earlier about, the system of, these could be the future careers of our young people, right? If we paid enough attention and there's enough political will, there should be a system or a pathway from the education institutions towards, people really working to solve and help these solutions as they conceptualize, these amazing things that Sal was sharing at their younger years. Then that can lead to a real, opportunity, business career as they move on into the working world. So that whole pathway, you're right. That connection implicitly is there, but maybe to kind of firm up those links is a great way. And from the education side, that is something that they, schools can start moving towards, because eventually, if I think it's a serious enough issue, then there will be kind of pathways in career and business or startups, what have you, who will be looking at that. And it starts from the schools being conscious of it. We have little time left. You're looking around 15 minutes. The time has flown by so fast. And I think most of the questions that have been here have been touched on a little bit, and we've kind of given some insight to it. I just want to kind of highlight maybe a couple of things in terms of, like you mentioned, involving the community, right? So it's one thing to have, the students, depending on their age level, the teachers having, and the administrations having a conscious, policy to have included, not necessarily as a strict subject, but maybe a clear outward subject, but maybe incorporated into the subject matter. How about other stakeholders? How about the parents? How about guardians, tutors, community? How do you involve other stakeholders in this green transition, this green mindset?
I feel like I get to answer that one
Oh,
first.
sure.
Do I?
Yeah.
Just because it's
Rooting
my
for you,
favorite.
Kate. Yeah.
It's my favorite.
I'm
favorite
looking at
space.
you, Kate.
I mean, at Green School Bali, we have such an engaged parent community, which is wonderful and dynamic, and also just a lot. I'll just leave it there sometimes. But I think, we are really bold in when families come to Green School. This is a call to action. If you're coming to Green School, where families are called to action to make a change. Whatever your start point, if you're part of the Green School community, we're all making an effort to live more sustainably. But I think over the years, Green School's only 14 years old. We're some kind of wild teenager, I think, at that stage of 14. But we have learned a lot of things, and a lot of things we've learned the hard way, I would say, as well, because it is quite a progressive school. So there was no sort of blueprint necessarily to follow. So we come with all our suggestions, come with a good dose of, or advice comes with a lot of humility, and a lot of acknowledging that our school's not perfect, that's for sure, work in progress. But one thing we realized very early on with the school was the energy, the talent, the skills and the potential of our parent community. And we love that idea around it taking a village to raise a child. And we could do a whole session just on engaging parents in a school and what that can look like, and what we could share with each other about that. But I would just give you one example. Our parents have their own space on the campus where they can be during the school day, because it's so beautiful at Green School. Everybody wants to come there, even if you're a parent of a child. So they have their own space, a co-working space. They have their own courses, classes, clubs, a lot of which is run by parents for parents. So Green School has sort of created this zone of parent learning. And in that, we find remarkable connections between parents and students. So whether they are artists or entrepreneurs or all kinds of different professions, all the professions probably at Green School, finding connections between our parents and particularly our older students in terms of their pathways, what they want to do, or a project they're working on. And so earlier today, I was in our parent co-working space, and we had a presentation from a parent and a group of high school students and a teacher. And they are working together as a team, excuse me, to look at redesigning our parent co-working space. And this architect has a lot of experience in biomimicry, and that's his whole area of architecture. Fascinating person. And so he is working with the students and with this teacher as a team to look at how they could redesign this space, create a new structure, use the most sustainable materials, make it carbon neutral, have wastewater systems, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a real project that these students are going to be working on with that parent architect and with a teacher in there as well. So just an example of what can be done. This is going to be amazing learning for these students. All these students that have joined this class are interested in design, in architecture, or art, and have come in and will all be playing a role in that project. But yeah, I mean, definitely for us, we it's scary sometimes, but we're kind of really open to parents being involved in the school and engaged in the school. We're wide open to that. And that way, if we're really going to live into our mission, which is a community of learners, making our world sustainable, that includes the parents as well. So that's our kind of approach on it. But yeah.
Fantastic, Kate. I'll just bring in Jake because I think we've had such a thorough discussion here. I want to get his insights. Hopefully he can come in. I'm sure, Jake, you've been raring to go. Please, I'll give you some floor time. Join us. I'm sure you're pretty excited. And, there's a lot of questions and comments and great feedback. Jake, please come on board here and, share a couple of insights or summarize kind of the discussion that we've been having. And I'll bring Jake in one moment. There you go. Okay, Jake, please share with us. I'm sure you have so much input and insight. Please do share your comments or questions.
No, yeah, we're learning so much tonight, Roy, and thanks to the speakers, we're getting a lot about green transition and all these new, thoughts and ideas that we as educators should keep in mind. I'll keep my summary very brief, and I'll use the three I's here, Roy, and
Okay,
basically
three
the three
eyes.
I's, yeah, will be issues, insights, and initiatives. Clearly, from the speakers, we now have a deeper understanding of the issue that we are all facing, and have to sort of equip our students with skills and values and attitudes that should be that they need to be able to address the issue. So I like it how Sal talked about how children are have the tendency to be disconnected to nature, and how we also talked about not instilling fear among the children, among our students, and instead we should make them more hopeful and optimistic. Thus, bringing the question: how are we actually preparing our students to face issues that we created ourselves, right? And that discussion really brought to the table the urgency of the matter, and how we as educators, as leaders of educational institutions, as teachers in the classrooms, must treat the matter with urgency and be able to really instill these values and attitudes and skills among our students. The next I is insights, Roy. I love it how Sal talked about how we should start with our youngest learners, talking about appreciation for nature, talking about the simplest things that they see around, how we're respecting our neighbor space by making sure that we're also practicing sustainable habits, not just in school but at home. So these are great start off points by which we can introduce in sustainability or the green transition. Then Evelyn talked about how we can support them as change makers, right? Engaging in activities involving project-based learning, and how that whole mindset should come into play. And of course, Kate also talked about identifying little actions and showing key values that we as adults should also manifest or demonstrate, so that they may also follow us and they may take their cues, and being able to identify small achievable actions and solutions that they can implement themselves. So there we realize that lasting solutions are needed, and our actions as educators, as parents, as citizens of the world, as adults will definitely shape how future generations respond to minimizing climate risks. And finally, Roy's initiatives, from the wisdom of our speakers tonight, we found out that the process of green transition is it's not just a set of skills, or not just things that we do at work, but it should be a mindset or a way of life, right? So that let's integrate what we've learned about all the green transition teachers in our lesson plans, in our learning design, and overall student experiences, so that the conversation is continuous and consistent. And so we must consistently engage our students in taking part in actions and activities that will further promote sustainability and green transition in their respective schools and communities. That's it, right?
Thanks for the three eyes, Jake. That was amazing. Uh, so yeah, see, we have to give him a round of clap, clap. I hope everyone out there,
Well,
you're giving Jake a
bye.
clap. Always great summaries there. Um, we've run out of time. I still have some final housekeeping reminders to share with the audience and how they get their course for this. I just want to do one round of final thoughts. Okay. So one round of final thoughts, your one sentence or one word final thoughts for the session today. We can go around the room, and I'll close with a cute question here in the chat. I'll reserve it. So, Kate, Sal, Evelyn, anyone who wants to share your final thoughts on how education institutions can, better prepare for the green transition or green education.
I think we started off with a little bit of gloom, but I think I just want to say there is hope, and in education, teachers are really first learners, we love learning. That's one of the reasons why we went into education. I think for each of us, I speak for myself at least. So there is hope because, we try to equip our students with the skills and there is hope that they will in turn, as they go out into the world, make it better. So that's what
Hope by equipping skills. Thanks, Evelyn.
for
Yes.
my kids, yeah.
Thank you, Evelyn. Final thoughts, Kate or Sal?
Well, I'll let Sal have the final thought. I think I'm just reiterating what Evelyn has said. I think it's just, any little step is a good step, and if everybody's taking a little step, then that's a lot
Many
of movement.
steps.
So
Yep.
I think that's the thing that's
Absolutely.
exciting in this space. And I think for all of us, if we need a little bit of motivation, let's take a walk in the forest or go to the beach, or just get yourself in nature to start with, because being in nature is not only going to help us protect it, but it's also fantastic for our own well-being, and it's great. So yeah, go green February. That's what I have to say.
And March and April and May.
Yes.
Yeah.
And whenever anyone's in Bali, let Sal and I know, because we would love to see you at the Green School.
Yes. Oh, yay.
Fantastic. Okay, I don't know, Sal, I know you had a long day today. Maybe we can go to the nice question or the key question. There have been people in the chat asking about your paintings in the back.
Picture, yes. Yeah.
Roy,
Oh, sorry,
there's lots
Sal.
of
Go ahead,
teachers
Sal.
here. Give me one last thought. Kate said I was going to have the last thing.
Sure.
But educators,
Go.
Educators, you've got a superpower. It is a superpower. What you do is awesome, amazing. It changes lives. Stay, be motivated, get inspired, learn, share. We are making a difference, and if you're an educator listening to this right now, you are making a difference every day in your classrooms. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sal.
See
Thanks.
this?
Oh, there. Evelyn, what is that?
Teaching is the greatest act of optimism. And
Absolutely.
wait, this is also to only the brave.
Only the brave teach. Indeed. Thank you so much. Wonderful artwork also. Kate, what's that behind you?
So
Sal
this is
apparently is the artist. Yeah.
Well, this is a beautiful, very, very intricate and detailed hand-drawn dandelion. So wait, which way? Here.
there.
It's absolutely beautiful. And that was a gift. That was a gift to me from the principal of Green School Bali. So how lucky am I?
Oh,
Over
that's
to you, Sal.
fantastic. How about Sal? What
I
art
got
do you have
more
behind you?
of my random art up against the wall. Yeah, that's just something I do to keep sane, I suppose. That could be another webinar. Yeah.
Fantastic art. Thanks for sharing that, Sal. That's a great session. Okay, so that was fantastic. Thank you so much, dear speakers. That was excellent. We have more in store for our audience. All right, for the rest of the week, we have other webinars. Technology Tuesdays coming up next week. Make sure you sign up for that. And the week after, there's ATS Thursdays, and of course, we have Saturday School. So this whole month of February is for green education with our partner Green School Bali. Thanks so much, panelists. I'll go to the housekeeping to tell our audience how they can get their certificates for this session. So I'll present my screen right now so that they can see it. I hope I share my correct screen. Okay, here, yes. All right, so if you've not yet created an AcadAsia account, make sure you go up to acadasia.com and sign in. Or if you have not created an account, make sure you create a teacher account. Okay, and once you create a teacher account, fill in all the information. And then once you complete it, you'll be creating your account. And once you log in and confirm your email address connected to your account, make sure to fill up your profile. Put your nice and beautiful and handsome pictures here, username, and then identity proof can be your staff ID of your school. Make sure you select the right address and location. And of course, make sure that also you choose the school that you belong to. Once you fill up all this information, you'll be able to access all our features on AcadAsia, including SkillEd. CollabEd is our social networking page. You can join us and have us here. So you can sign up here and chat with other educators from all over the world. The course you will find here on Skilled. So if I refresh the page, you should be able to see it. If you scroll down here, can education institutions help with the green transition? So this is the course we have for the CPD points here today for Philippine users especially. So make sure you enroll in the course. Okay, once you enroll in the course, you go through all the sessions here. And once you go through all the sessions here, make sure that in the end of the page, let me just go here one moment. At the end of the page, wait, let me enroll. I'll enroll first, and then you go through all this. At the exit survey at the very end, once you complete all the assessments and the topics here, there is one form for Philippine teachers. You have to fill up this attendance form until February 7th. Okay, so make sure that you fill up this form by February 7th, complete the course and this form, and then towards the end, make sure you complete the topics so that you'll be eligible for the CPD units in the Philippines for this session. If you're not from the Philippines and you don't need this, it's all right. You can skip that. Just complete the entire course and you can submit and you will earn your certificate from AcadAsia Singapore as well. Additionally, you can also, one moment. I hope you're seeing my screen. I think I'm only sharing one tab. Let me go back. Okay. All right. So I hope everyone's seeing my tab on the screen. In addition to this, can you confirm, Jake or anybody, you can see my screen, right? There's a giveaway also included for our program. Oh no, I'm only sharing my tab. One moment. Let me stop this. I knew it. I wasn't sharing this. Let me share it one more time. I was only sharing the tab. Sorry about that. Let me share it one more time. Sharing screen. Okay, now I have it. All right, I got it. Now this is the right one. Okay, sorry. One more time, everybody. Don't forget to sign up on AcadAsia. Make sure you fill up the teacher if you haven't signed up. Complete your complete profile information while you're here. You'll see all of that, including your professional details. And then enroll in, once you get here, Skilled. Can education institutions help with the green transition? This is our course. Make sure you enroll in this course. And once you get to the entire lesson, complete all the assessments. At the very end, this is the attendance form for CPD units for Philippine users who want to get the CPD points. Make sure you fill this up by February 7. If you're not from the Philippines, it's all right. Just complete the course and you'll still get your certificate from AcadAsia. Okay? And then additionally, we have a promo from Green School. If you watch our webinar series today and after each event, you enroll in the company course and complete the requirements, post your certificate that you've earned on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and tag AcadAsia for teachers or include hashtag AcadAsiaXGen. And the more certificates you post, the more chances of winning. You will get your the most shares and the most likes will get this Green School Bali water bottle as our part of our giveaway. We'll send it to you wherever you are. Please read the full mechanics on acadasia.com. All right. And then finally, our registration page. Catch us on Feb 7, understanding systems and feedback loops using Cogli and Loopy. This Coggle and Loopy. This is for our Technology Tuesday. Again, applying green education. We'll have no one from Green School Bali showing us how to use this tech tool to incorporate and improve your pedagogy and learning delivery. All right. So sign up at greeneducationacadasia.com. Share your certificates. Join the promo. Complete the course and earn your CPD points. All right. That's it for me. On behalf again of Kate, Sal, Evelyn, and Jake, this is Roy from the AcadAsia family. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you soon. See you next time. All right. Finish your courses and see you on Feb 7. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Hi everyone. Welcome to ACAD Asia. ACAD Asia is a Singapore-based impact-driven edtech startup that empowers the largest online community of education institutions and educators in Asia to upskill and reskill themselves to improve the learning outcomes for their 21st century learners. On acadasia.com, educators can access 4 specific services. First, Collab Ed, a social networking service that empowers education institutions to build their international network from all over Asia, and where individual educators can join a wide range of communities of teaching ad learning practice and engage in peer-to-peer learning. Second, Skill Ed, a professional development service that empowers educators to upskill and reskill themselves by accessing more than 1,000 hours of professional development content, all with formal CPD accreditations. In addition to this, academic managers from education institutions can track, measure, and improve the efficacy of all professional development that their faculty access on the platform, thus leading to better learning outcomes for their students. Third, Design Ed, the easiest course builder on the planet. In 5 simple steps, this service empowers educators to build fun, engaging, and quality content for their learners. Furthermore, third-party tools like Canva, Google, etc. are fully integrated right into Design Ed. Fourth, Certify Ed, a digital credentialing service that empowers education institutions to design, award, and track fully verifiable and tamper-proof digital micro-credentials and certificates on the blockchain. Join the largest community of educators in Asia who are already using the platform and sign up for your free lifetime membership at www.acadasia.com today.